Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cutting through some noise to get to something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
ESG. But maybe not the way you usually hear about it. We're looking at how this whole corporate responsibility thing, environmental, social governance, is being, well, kind of reimagined, not in boardrooms, but in high schools. We've got some sources here that really highlight something interesting. We know ESG is big now, right? I mean, the data shows, what, in 2024, over 70% of major Korean companies put out ESG reports.
That's a huge number, really significant adoption.
But here's the thing. The sources seem to suggest, well, despite all that reporting, the action, maybe not so much. It feels a bit like it's more focused on looking good, polished reports.
Cyril on the ground impact. Yeah. That tension is exactly what makes this student angle so fascinating. We usually talk about corporate ESG, as this top-down thing, compliance, mandates.
Right.
But when students pick up that framework without the corporate baggage, it becomes something else, almost a cultural movement.
They don't have the legacy systems or maybe shareholder pressure in the same way.
Exactly. They just bypass a lot of that. And they show ESG isn't just one thing. It connects, say, cafeteria food waste to things like school governance, local industry, the environment around them. It's not an annual report for them. It's daily life, daily actions.
Right. So our mission today, we're going to try and look past the big corporate promises. We want to dig into the really hands-on stuff students in Korea and also Mongolia are doing, turning ESG from slogans
into actual steps, real practical change.
Okay, let's start there. Why is this action, this youth action, so needed right now? What's the context?
Well, to really get why they're so motivated, you have to look at the stakes. The sources we reviewed are pretty clear. The impacts of, say, high-emission industries or just not enough focus on sustainability, these aren't abstract future problems. They're happening now.
And hitting specific communities harder.
Disproportionately hitting vulnerable communities, yes. We saw clear examples. Think about Korea, summer of 2023. That heat wave.
I remember reading about that. Brutal.
It wasn't just uncomfortable. The sources really highlighted how it hammered rural areas, low-income areas, places without good cooling. That's the S in ESG, right?
Right.
The social impact, directly tied to an environmental issue.
And you mentioned Mongolia, too, Ulaanbaatar.
Yes, an even starker picture, especially in winter. Heating is a massive issue, often coal-based, and the result? PM 2.5 dust levels. I mean, they skyrocket, way, way above WHO limits.
For people maybe not familiar, PM 2.5, that's the really nasty stuff, right? Fine particles.
Really fine stuff. It gets deep into your lungs, bloodstream. When we say far above WHO limits, we're talking about air that's genuinely toxic for months. It causes huge public health problems. So this is the immediate, life and death backdrop that's pushing young people to say, we need to do something.
Okay, so that urgency is clear. And this connects back to what you said about corporate efforts maybe falling short. While, Europe or the US might be setting these big long-term carbon neutral goals, sharing data. Locally, in places like Korea or Mongolia, sometimes the corporate ESG feels more like that appearance thing again.
Often, yes. It can address the global idea without really tackling the immediate local consequences. Or it looks good on paper, but doesn't change much day to day.
And that gap, that's where the youth action comes in, focusing locally, incrementally.
Precisely. They're kind of filling a void that the bigger structures, maybe because of inertia, are leaving open.
So if the big top-down efforts aren't always hitting the mark, where does the real practical change start?
Our sources point to, a pretty small group of students, right, with basically no budget.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part. This case study focuses on the SIA-ACTzins, formed in 2025. Just 6 students from Seoul International School in Korea, and interestingly, 1 student from Mongolia collaborating remotely.
Okay, 6 + 1, and their goal.
Simple, but ambitious. How do we actually weave ESG principles into how the school runs every day, knowing they have, limited resources, limited authority as students?
How did they even approach that? Must have felt huge.
Well, their philosophy was key, and honestly, big companies could probably learn from it. They set one main rule.
Don't try to solve everything at once. Divide and practice step by step.
Ah, okay. Iterative. Break it down.
Exactly. Avoid the overwhelm. Focus on small, daily, achievable things. Wins you can actually see.
Let's break that down then, using the ESG letters, because they really did apply these big concepts to small actions, didn't they? Starting with E, environment.
Right, environment. They went straight for something visible, every day. Food waste. In the cafeteria.
Okay, food waste makes sense.
Yeah.
Easy to see. Did they just, put up posters?
Huh, no. Much more sophisticated than that. This was like mini data science in the lunchroom. They tracked metrics, not just how much food was thrown out, but which classes wasted most, what types of food did the menu affect waste.
Wow.
They were essentially building a little data system for the school to track and analyze this stuff, to give real numbers back to the administration.
That's basically internal auditing, using data, the G part, to drive environmental impact, the E.
Yep.
So they could argue for changes based on numbers, not just, we think this is a problem, like waste goes up on pizza day or whatever.
Precisely. Data-driven advocacy, even at that scale. And that evidence feeds right into the social part.
Raising awareness, changing behavior among their classmates.
Yeah, but again, not just posters. They knew static stuff doesn't really grab people. They focused on engagement, creativity.
Like, what did they do?
This is where it gets fun. They made, like, fire drill safety videos, but slipped in sustainability reminders.
What?
They created interactive quizzes, games, all linked back to things like food waste, making it relevant, maybe even a bit competitive.
So tying into things kids had to pay attention to anyway, like fire drills.
Exactly. It wasn't just another boring announcement. It became part of the school culture, organically, shifting it from a chore to maybe a shared goal.
Okay, E&S makes sense. But G, governance. That seems like the toughest one for students. Influencing policy with no real power.
It does seem tough, yeah.
Yeah.
But they tackled it. They focused on policy reflection, getting feedback loops going.
Yeah.
They didn't just complain informally. They actively collected student opinions on school events, school policies, and importantly, they aimed to document it formally. The big step was actually drafting council reports. Student council reports based on this feedback.
Whoa, okay. So using the existing structures.
Exactly. Using the school's own administrative pathways, it kind of forced the administration to engage with student ideas through official channels.
They weren't just protesting outside the system, they were using the system's rules.
Right. Turning that lack of formal authority into, well, innovation within the system, finding leverage points, establishing a precedent maybe for student input on policy.
And this whole project had that international piece too, right? The Mongolian teammate? How did that work?
Yeah, that adds another really interesting layer. That student wasn't just, dialing into Zoom meetings.
No.
They became a change agent back in their own community. Took the ideas, the framework from the ACP's ends.
And adapted it.
Adapted and applied it locally in Ulaanbaatar. Led awareness efforts tailored to their community's needs. Created guidebooks, posters, focusing on local issues like maybe reducing coal smoke, things directly relevant there.
So it bridges that gap between school learning and real urgent community problems. The heat waves, the PM 2.5. Those are local. Solutions need to be too.
Absolutely. It shows how these frameworks can be localized effectively. But, the sources are realistic. It wasn't all a smooth success story from day one. They hit bumps.
Oh yeah, what kind of challenges?
Well, two main things stand out. First, maybe surprisingly, was initially low participation from their peers.
Really? You'd think kids would be into this.
The core group was enthusiastic, sure.
Right.
But getting the whole student body to change habits, that's hard work anywhere.
So they had to keep tweaking their approach. The games, the quizzes.
Constantly iterating, yeah. Finding what actually engaged people beyond the initial committed few.
And the second challenge.
Practicality. They admitted their first attempts, like checklists for environmental actions. They were a bit, pie in the sky. Not really workable in a busy school day.
Right, easy to make a list, harder to follow it.
So they had to scrap those early versions, go back, and design stuff that was genuinely functional, step by step, for real students and teachers.
That struggle, though, that feels like the real lesson, doesn't it?
I think so. It really underlines that ESG, this whole framework, it isn't just for massive corporations with sustainability departments. It requires, persistence, being willing to adapt, learning when something isn't working, and trying again.
They used a corporate tool, basically, but stripped away the bureaucracy.
And applied it with creativity and, frankly, grit to make real, measurable changes in their own small system.
It shows that the scale isn't always the point. It's the discipline, the process. So, wrapping this up, what's the main takeaway here for you listening? Whether you're in Seoul, Ulaanbaatar, London, New York, anywhere, these student projects, tracking food waste with data, drafting policy reports, it really seems to show that small, steady actions do add up. Incremental progress drives bigger change.
Yeah, and when students, teachers, the wider community, when they start working together, using evidence, focusing on the step-by-step actions instead of just, grand statements, then ESG stops being just a corporate buzzword on a report. It becomes, well, actual improvement, better environment, better social connection, better governance, measured day by day.
It makes it real.
It makes it real. And it leaves us with a pretty pointed question, I think, something the sources make you consider. If this younger generation with hardly any resources, no formal power, if they're already showing this level of practical innovation, this commitment, we have to ask, right? What limitations are we, as adults, as institutions, maybe accepting too easily? Limitations are already proving can be overcome.
It's a challenging thought.
Future generation is already acting. The question is, what are you doing now? Are you ready to join in?